humblemud.
Welcome to the Humble Lounge. Today, we're going to talk about how to fall back in love with games, even if you've got limited time. I've noticed many of my peers have fallen out from gaming as they've gotten older due to those pesky responsibilities. Meanwhile, I've personally had a bit of a gaming renaissance over the last couple of years, so I thought I would share some of the strategies that I did that got me back to that place. And at the end of this video, I'm also going to share some games a little off the beaten path that I think can really help spark some inspiration and get you back to playing games again, so stay tuned for that. Before I begin though, definitely let me know how you're feeling when it comes to that intersection of games and life. Are you even more into games now? Are you feeling a little distant from them? Or are you somewhere in between? Let me know down below. The very first thing I want to recommend doing if you haven't already is to return to your roots. If you grew up with first-person shooters, play a first-person shooter. If it's JRPGs you miss, dive into the one that you can chip away at slowly each day. Fighters, racers, whatever, you get the point. My only caveat here is I wouldn't necessarily advise going back to an old classic that you've played before. That might help you, but it also might make you feel a lack of progression to be running back through the same places that you've already been before. You run the risk of going right back to square one that way, and you may find that certain elements of that old game that you used to love, you now don't enjoy as much as you remember. So again, using my first-person shooter example, if the series you're most nostalgic for is something like the original Halo trilogy, try another game from around that era that could be seen as maybe adjacent to that or give similar moments of satisfaction. Something like Black, Half-Life 1 and 2, or Mass Effect. These are games different enough to be their own thing, but close enough to where you're still relatively within your comfort zone. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, Humble, I've been playing my favorite genres my whole life and the magic is still just not there lately, well, my tip for you would be to do the exact opposite of the last tip that I mentioned. Try something completely different. Last year, I had my first visual novel experience with Digimon Survive, and I also played more horror games than I had in my entire life. All it took was finding that one game that seemed interesting enough to want to take a chance on, usually in combination with a nice sale price, and all of a sudden I was finding myself getting really into something completely new. Now I want to try more visual novels, I'm actively seeking out new horror experiences, and I'm also thinking about which genres I might want to experiment with more this year. I've never really gotten into 4X or RTS type games or pure puzzle games, so I'm open to suggestions. Let me know if you have any. My third tip, and this is a big one, is to find gateway games. Think about all of those times when you just got home from work, are exhausted from a long day, and after helping out around the house, doing dinner and all of that stuff, you've got 30 minutes or an hour or two before bed where you can finally play something. But instead of doing that, you just kind of stare at your physical collection, scroll through your digital one, and you just start to feel overwhelmed and paralyzed because it's too much. A lot of times, just making that first step and getting into something seems to be the hardest part. That's where gateway games come in. These are often quick pick up and play experiences that get the flow going and help you ease into it. Suddenly 10-15 minutes later you realize, oh, I'm gaming and I'm having fun, and now tackling that big open world game that you've been thinking about doesn't feel quite as overwhelming now because you already had your appetizer and now you're ready for the big meal. And if you don't move on from that gateway game and you're still playing it an hour later, that's okay too, because these games are also usually really good in their own right. And this is the way you start finding comfort games. I want to make sure I share all of my tips out here in the open first, but I'll share some of my personal favorite gateway games at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. The fourth tip I'd like to give is to gamify the way you play games. I keep a spreadsheet of all the games I have and or games I'm interested in. Now, that's a lot of games, and so it can be overwhelming. But what I do is I'll take that list, maybe pick anywhere from 5 to 10 games from said list that really catch my attention or that have been on my mind lately, and then I'll use a fun little slidey wheel like the one you see here to make my decision. The way I pick these games always differs. Sometimes I might limit myself to just one console or one genre, and that also helps narrow down the decision making as well. I also like to keep a list of the games I've beaten throughout the year, and I only add them once I hit that credit screen. This is almost like getting an achievement or a trophy for me, and crossing a game off the list just feels really good. Now, I've touched on this off and on throughout my video, but a big reason I think a lot of us lose that sense of magic that we used to find so easily is because it never feels like we have enough time to play everything we want. Before I begin with my final tip, I will go ahead and say that I don't have kids currently, and I know that having kids completely changes everything. So if you're looking for some advice on gaming and battling backlogs as a parent, FemTrooper has a great video on being a gamer mom that I highly recommend. But my fifth tip that is relevant regardless of your situation is that you have to make intentional time for your hobbies, and that includes gaming. Since I don't get to play games as much as I'd like to, I try to make my gaming sessions somewhat special, almost like a ritualistic practice. I bring out my huge water bottle because I need something like this right in front of my face or I'll forget to stay hydrated. I might have some good snacks around. I set up the lighting and the vibes that I want. I make sure that my console or game or whatever it is that I'm planning to play is updated and that my controllers are charged ahead of time. I put my phone away, which is probably the most important piece of all of this. And so whether I have some time to myself in the mornings before work or it's a late night weekend session where everyone else is asleep, I make sure to give this time I have to myself the attention that it deserves, without anything in the way to hinder it from happening. Keep your time, whether it's a large or a small amount, sacred. And my mindset hack, which is really just a harmless little mantra to believe in and tell yourself repeatedly, is that now is the best time to be a gamer. If you can remind yourself of that and work on truly feeling it and believing it, it's going to help you. Never before have we been able to so easily access games from a multitude of eras from a span of so many decades. In the comments of my SNES collection video, my uncle wrote that he had to sit on a wait list for months to just get a chance to play The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Last year, I was able to download that game and play it on my cell phone before a flight on a whim. It's a completely different reality that we live in now. You can play that big modern game that you've been so excited for, jump into a comfort game from your childhood for a bit, and then try out a game you've been curious about that either came out before you were even born or was released on a console you never had as a kid, all in one night if you wanted to. Look at your backlog more like a list of future adventures, because that's what it is. And when you learn to look at all of this from more of a place of gratitude, it all starts to become so much more exciting. Okay, so I've shared my tips, I've shared my mindset hack. Now I'm going to cover the part that you've been waiting for. Let's quickly run through some gateway games that I'd personally recommend if you're trying to get past that analysis paralysis, if you're trying to just play some games and get your mojo back. We're going to start with some simple indie games that I really love that really helped me and that I would highly recommend to anyone. Downwell is a simple arcadey game where you're guiding this character deeper and deeper down into this well in order to collect the treasure rumored to be down below. This well is filled with dangerous monsters, but luckily you're equipped with your gun boots that allow you to fight back. This is a game meant to be played in bursts, and it's just so easy to jump into for some quick fun. It's $3 full price, and honestly one of the games I've played the most on my Nintendo Switch over the years. A Short Hike is an adorable game where you play as this little bird who's trying to make her way to the top of a mountain. The character interactions are really fun. Everything about this game just oozes personality. It doesn't overstay its welcome, which makes sense considering its name. And there's no sense of pressure put on you as you play. It's just this relaxing, cozy adventure game, perfect to play after a long day or to start your morning off. And to me, it's just one of those games that make me appreciate the little things in life and want to take things slow. It's $8 full price and goes on sale frequently. Goblin Sword is a platformer game that reminds me of classic series like Wonder Boy. It's extremely simple, but the beauty of this game is in its simplicity and execution. Level to level, you'll collect gems and other collectibles, often obscured by hidden walls, all while taking down the monsters in your path. It's not terribly difficult, though you'll find a little challenge in the boss fights. Levels can be beaten pretty quickly, and there are enough secrets and unlockables to really make this worth your time. If I had been covering this in my speed dating series, this would be a Friends with Benefits game. I come back to it all the time. It's $5 full price and goes on sale frequently. Now, racing games, beat-em-ups, shmups, and run-and-guns I basically group together in this next category because their entire appeal is to get you right into the action and give you a sense of progression and adrenaline fast. There are a ton of racing games out there, but lately my favorite comfort game to play is the Xbox PS2 classic Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. The footage you're seeing here is actually from the PSP version, which is a fantastic, pretty much one-to-one port of the PS2 version, and is more likely to run well on a variety of devices. I also had to give a quick shout out to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge and Streets of Rage 4. These are fantastic modern beat-em-ups that feel like worthy successors to games like Turtles in Time and Streets of Rage 2. If you're looking for a fantastic, addictive card-based game, I can personally vouch for Slay the Spire, but be careful, it might become one of your all-time favorites. I haven't personally played Balatro, but I've heard nothing but great things from my friends about this game, and can see this one scratching an itch similar to Slay the Spire if you've already played that one. And a game that I'm definitely going to pick up soon is UFO 50. This is a mini-game collection of 50 games spanning across a variety of genres for a series of fictional consoles. It's such a neat concept, it looks like the perfect way to get that dopamine in, and get you back into the groove to game. When it comes to these pick up and play genres, there are so many games I could recommend, so really quickly, I'll splash this list of my personal favorites on screen, and you can feel free to pause and look any of these games up if you're looking for more games to get into. So if you're someone who struggles to just relax and game sometimes, these are simple tips and suggestions, but if you actually put them into practice, I think you'll get some value out of them. And if you're looking for any more gateway games, I can always make more suggestions. This was just scratching the surface of some of the ones that I really enjoy. Let me know if you have any gateway games that have gotten you back into the groove in the past, because I'm sure I'll need some new ones myself one day. And if you liked this video, stay tuned because next week I plan on talking about the games that saved me. This will be covering those big, maybe even life-changing games that really started that fire within me and brought me back to this wonderful hobby and ultimately contributed to me making this channel. The games that kicked off that gaming renaissance I was referring to earlier in the beginning of this video. I hope to see you there. If you're still here, thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay humble.